WCLN 1170 Radio and Starvision Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I want to thank Nicole for that wonderful introduction she does for us each week. You are listening to and looking at We Should Know. We're coming to you on WCLN 1170 Radio, AM here in Clinton, North Carolina, Starvision Channel 16. We're worldwide on the internet at oldies1170.com. There's a reprint of our program in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. You can pick that up and read about us, read about the programs we have. I want to give a quick shout out to the Sampson Community College folks, Lisa Turlington. Big golf tournament coming up with the foundation. Lisa's director of the foundation. Give her a call if you're interested in that. And we look forward to giving you additional information about events and things that are coming up. If you have something, you can email us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. We're very excited today. We've got one of our guests back. Fellow that comes in occasionally and helps me out a lot and kind of gives me some pointers. I always like to have Kelly McCullen. A lot of folks know Kelly. Kelly's originally from this area. Kelly, we are quoted, I guess, as saying that you do a little of this and that, except you do it for TV, and you do it for UNC-TV, and you've been an anchor, reporter, host, covered the political scene up there. Pretty knowledgeable guy, and kind of as part of my introduction, I'm going to give you a minute to tell us what you're doing and what you've been up to, but I wanted to get you in because we're just a few days out here before the election. You're on point with a lot of these things, and as I sat and looked at a number of events going on, I remember telling Chris Hewitt, the producer here, I said, you know, I want to get Kelly back and let's talk about this whole issue of what's happening and what's coming up. But let's start out and talk about Kelly McCullen. Originally from here, originally did radio work here. You've kind of progressed up the food chain. Tell us what's going on with Kelly McCullen now.
What's going on with me right now is that I'm traveling the state and I am covering reports, a lot of feature stories right now, a lot of slice of life type stories for UNC-TV. It's what I seem to do very, very well. Of all the things I could do, in my opinion, I feel good about doing that, I should say. You can judge whether I'm any good or not. But we're doing a lot of those, getting ready for early January with the convening of the 2013 legislative session, which is that long session that should last, in theory, between January 9th and July 1st. And my mind, as of today, has started tilting towards getting through the holidays and getting ready for political season.
Well, that journey is interesting, and where we are now, just a few days out before the election, a lot of folks already voting in early voting, a lot of issues facing us, and I want to get into that in a moment. Before we do, I want to back up a bit and mention some of the things that you just recently did a wonderful program on the late Bill Friday, which Mr. Friday was, I guess, an icon in the kind of reporting and the kind of program that he did. I told somebody, I said, there was two folks I wish I could meet, and one of them is too late, of course, is William Friday, and the other person was Billy Graham. They're kind of in that same category or genre to me, but you did such a great job in bringing out this guy's history and his life in that segment. And I don't know whether anybody got to look at that or not. I'm assuming they can go online and pull it up and take a look at it. That's a great program.
It's on YouTube. It's on the UNCTV.org website if you want to go look at Dr. William Friday, or Mr. William Friday. Apparently he didn't like being called doctor because he didn't earn the doctorate, he said.
Yeah, so he liked the Mr. part.
You know, William Friday was an approachable gentleman, and I knew people that worked with him that got to know him very well, and he was a mentor on a personal level, and for the historical significance he will play in North Carolina history, especially as you study back in time. We don't appreciate people oftentimes till they're gone. They're going to find this guy really made a lot of waves in North Carolina, made a lot of progress in the university system you see right now is because of Dr. William Friday. And so he is a real loss. He was 92 years old. He did the show for UNC-TV for 42 seasons. And even in his frail show, he was frail this past summer, and he had been in the hospital, and he still said he wanted to do one more season. And his last show apparently was recorded in July with General Hugh Shelton. That's all he had in him left. And of course, we still hear words that Dr. Friday's gone a few Fridays ago. And while you're not surprised, you're deeply saddened. But he was absolutely brilliant gentleman, sharp as a tack, and North Carolina is going to miss him, especially those that knew him.
You know, and you portrayed that so well in that documentary that you did with his life, and I think one of the things that brought it out to me was that he was such a humble spirit in the sense of the way he approached people. There was not even a touch of the power and sense of the people that he could reach out and touch at any moment. I mean, you just didn't get that from him.
Yeah, you did not, but that's how he was. He was just like you see on television. He was like that in person. Now, I didn't see him for years and years and years. I don't even know if he knew who I was other than some reporter on UNC-TV, but I remember being around him when I was in college, and it was the same attitude no matter where you were, on camera or off. That was William Friday, and very few people can be themselves on a camera and in real life, but boy, he pulled it off and got great interviews. People that would never think of interviewing with you and I, or I would never say no to Bill Friday.
Well, and that was, I think, what's so interesting. When I look back at his life, he had folks on, I mean, both political persuasions, people that you would think, and when you looked at, I watched the funeral, his service on TV, as many people I'm sure did, and there was folks there, candidates from both political parties, and they were all in the same one agreement level of what he had done for this state.
What you saw is absolutely an accurate observation. He had bipartisan appeal, and he was very well respected. And like I said, he'll just be missed. I mean, he was active and he was contributing to the discussion in North Carolina right up until he passed away, and that's all any of us can hope for. But it's also very easy to track someone's life when for more than half of it they were on television. Mm-hmm. And the morning he passes away, we gather a small team together, and turns out we had interviews going back 50 years with Luther Hodges and with Frank Porter Graham, and things that you don't realize how valuable they are until you absolutely need that 30 seconds of video, and there it is, and it's stored forever on digital tape now, and so he'll move on into history, and we'll preserve that library. You best believe that.
I want to crack that door for a moment. There's a lot we could talk about in that area, but you mentioned something that often just intrigues me. When I look back at history, and especially with their ability now to have things on tape and video, is there a real sense that, and oftentimes I see this sense that we look back at things and we're not really creating that much new. We see things that have been played out in the past, and all of a sudden we see it playing out again, some of the same kinds of things, especially in government and politics. And it may be built around programs we have or attempts to correct things in society through political structure. And we look back 20, 30, 40, 50 years and going, well, didn't we do something similar to this back then?
Well, history repeats itself
on
a whole host of issues.
When I think about it.
Well, you know, the people that went through it, the people that went through the Great Depression are dying out. Mm-hmm. And the past 5 years, you and I have gotten a taste of it, haven't we?
Absolutely.
And in 50 or 60 or 70 years, something will happen, and my grandchildren will realize that, you know, old man Kelly, when he was saying times got hard, he was right. Because you've heard about the old Depression stories, and we always go, yeah, but yeah.
It sets the tone for the future.
It absolutely
does. I mean, we start identifying and we start retracting and holding on, and it sets the tone of what our expectations are.
Well, your generation thinks that they're all smarter than my generation. Now look at my daughter, and I think these kids these days, and she's a baby, they'll never be as smart as we were because we're older and we're wiser. And it just goes on and on and on. It's what makes history so interesting, but it's also why we can never seem to solve all the problems and figure out how to end poverty and hunger and all the things we wish we could stop that just never have been stopped in the history of time.
You've had a lot of time that you've spent with UNC-TV, and we just mentioned, you know, you've done a little bit of everything from producer to anchor to political reporting. Give us a sense of the difference between what UNC-TV does as it relates to other channels that we may switch to, for example, WRAL or WECT or some of the other programs. What are some of the differences?
The biggest difference between what would be a commercial news station and what I would do with the show I work on, North Carolina Now and Legislative Week in Review, is that those stations are facing noon deadlines, 5 p.m. deadlines, 6 p.m. deadlines, 10 o'clock if you've got a Fox channel under you, which WRAL has, WRAZ, and then 11 o'clock. So you're always having to feed that animal in commercial news. Mm-hmm. It's also why we can sit and talk on this forum for an hour about a few topics for a niche audience, and same as with public television versus having to get out there and hustle car wrecks and mayhem and things that people say they're sick of, but yet we glue ourselves to the television set to learn more about. That's the big difference. It's pacing. One is an animal that has to be fed 3 times a day. The other one, we can sit back a little bit, take a longer view of it, and cater to a more deeper discussion, and leave it up to the politicians and voters and things of that nature to decide whether a show like this is worth funding, is public television worth funding, or do we turn it over to the marketplace and we get that run and gun news style that has been successful for 50 or 60 years now.
And you've seen that literally play out, and I think what the value added for UNC and really for what we try to do here is that baseline of information and education a little bit deeper than the highlight, a little bit deeper than just maybe touching the top surface. Maybe open the book a little bit, go beyond the forward in the book, and maybe cover at least a few of the chapters or something.
What I learned about doing local news, and I was an assistant news director in a rather violent town in terms of statistically and when you look at crime, I learned that house fires are house fires. You just change the person's name, you change the address, and you get a sound bite or an interview with the fire chief or the fire person in charge. And if the family will talk, you do that. It always adds a nice element to the story. I don't mean to be cold about that. That's how it goes. When you look at the issues base, there's a whole lot more issues out there. There's a whole lot more depth out there. And what you and I are walking the balance with is we can give you more of these issues-based discussions, but we have to worry about boring people to death because we're not everybody's cup of tea.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think you just hit the key point. We got to be able to make sure that folks not only want to hear more, but they understand they need to hear more. And I think thus, we started this program with We Should Know, and there's a sense that we were hoping to reach out and hook that person and say, listen, you really do need to know more about this. So.
Well, yeah, just like this show, for instance, you may have a guy on from the National Weather Center or Hurricane Center talking to you about hurricanes in North Carolina. You'll get a different audience than when you talk about the Kiwanis pancake breakfast.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just when you're eclectic like that, you're taking a chance, you're going to turn off a whole host of an audience.
Absolutely. Well, Kelly, we're going to go to our first break. We're taking a break. We're talking with Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV. We'll be back in a moment with We Should Know. Stay tuned. Call a friend. Tell them we're interviewing Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV. Be back in a moment.
Hello, everyone. This is Jim Darden. After 25 years of teaching horticulture at Sampson Community College, I've retired to devote my full attention to Darden's Nursery and Landscaping, where we have grown local azaleas, trees, and other landscape plants for over 30 years. And our landscaping division has designed and installed hundreds of residential and commercial landscapes, irrigation, sodding, and night light systems as well. Please give me a call at 590-9689 or at home at 592-1424, and let's get started on your landscape. Our initial consultation is free. Congratulations to JW Simmons on an outstanding program, We Should Know.
Hi, I'm Cliff Ireland with the Small Business Center at Sampson Community College. We offer things like one-on-one individual confidential counseling sessions. We offer assistance to both startup businesses and existing businesses. We have a network of referrals both here in the county and outside the county. And in addition, we offer year-round seminars and workshops in professional development. One of the neat things about the Small Business Center is that for the majority of the programs, it is at little or no cost to Small Business Center clients or seminar participants. Now, if you want to know how we can help you or help your business, please call 592-7176 at Sampson Community College.
You really thought about what you have to lose if you drink and drive?
This is your district attorney, Ernie Lee. You could lose your privilege to drive and spend serious jail time.
Hello, I'm Cindy Joyner. Driving impaired can make your insurance increase significantly and could create problems in finding a quality insurance plan.
This is Sherry Matthews with the Sampson Independent. Your name could appear in the local media, causing embarrassment to your family, friends, and coworkers.
Hi, this is Luis Torres from Murphy Brown LLC. You know you could even lose your job, resulting in severe hardship for you and your family.
Hi, this is Dr. Tommy Newton, and personal injuries to yourself and others may often be severe and permanently disabling.
I'm Laura Bradshaw, a member of SAD. The most important loss may be your life or the life of someone else.
This is Cindy Joyner with Lockamy Tech Insurance. We are pleased to sponsor this message. Join us as we promote safer communities and help prevent needless tragedies.
Remember, don't lose your privilege to drive. This is First Sergeant Ricky Hooks with the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. For additional information, call 910-592-3141.
Health Mart Pharmacy.
A real live person. It's just like Jenny told me.
Another friend of Jenny's. Great. I've met about 3 of Jenny's friends just this week.
You'll meet more of us. Jenny was telling all of us last week how great Health Mart is.
At Health Mart, all of our pharmacists take the time to get to know our patients, explain their medications, and answer any questions they may have. We really believe in better care and better service.
Can I stop in after work?
Absolutely.
Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
For all of your prescription and healthcare needs, shop Matthews Health Mart in the Jordan Shopping Plaza or call 592-3121.
I'm Gary Hall, manager of Sessoms Jewelry. We are proud to be sponsors of JW's We Should Know. At Sessoms Jewelry, we've always strived to give you the latest in technical advice and knowledge on our merchandise. Remember, We Should Know at Sessoms Jewelry, downtown Clinton.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know it's on the air, on the radio, on the TV, Channel 16 Star Vision, WCLN 1170 AM, 2:30 to 3:30 on Tuesday. Our program airs with a repeat at 7 p.m. on Star Vision Channel 16, 7 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Reprint in the Sampson Weekly newspaper worldwide on the internet at oldies1170.com. I don't want to miss a moment this morning, try to get all I can in. We're talking with Kelly McCullen, anchor, reporter, host, UNC-TV. Kelly, we've talked about UNC versus some of the other programs or options, and I think one of the things you just pointed out is folks have a choice out there. And you know, we got so many channels now. Sometimes as I'm have the time, I'll flip through, and I'm constantly, and maybe it's an age thing, but I'm constantly looking something with a little more depth. You know, I can see the buzz stories, as you just mentioned, and I can see the things where folks run out and give me a quick clip, but I want a little more depth. And with that being said, I want to try to bring this discussion today because we are a few days out of the election, and one of the things you do, you spend a lot of time at the legislature in Raleigh. I know I've run into you a couple of times at the legislative building. In fact, you've got a room up there. UNC does TV at the legislature.
A room down there. In the
basement. Down there.
a tiny little studio and our set's as big as this one, and we just have to make it happen. So yes, we're down there. But
you're on top of things up there, and you know, it just occurs to me as I've looked at some of the debates, and some of them have been rather lively. I want to talk for a minute about the moderators, and I'm looking, I guess it's because I'm sure you do too with what you do, but I look at some of those folks and they got a pretty hectic job sitting there trying to get those questions out, and it was almost like on some of the debates, especially the presidential debates, the moderator goes into referee mode, and I'm not sure they need to worry about going into referee mode. Tell us about your sense of what you saw from the moderators and what maybe you would have done different.
The moderator's role, I watched all 3 gubernatorial and all 3 presidential debates. If you watched the gubernatorial debates, you saw that when 30 seconds were up, my boss, Shannon Vickery of UNC-TV, would step in there and say, your time is up. And to me, that's the accurate way to do it, even if it's a bit rude and a bit forceful, because these campaigns all agree to the rules of a debate before they ever step foot in that studio.
They know what they're expected.
To act like it's some free-flowing enterprise, it can be, but they both agree. Both campaigns agree to that laundry list of rules, which is I answer a question and you rebut it for 30 seconds. Maybe one other time we go back the other way. So in that regard, we did an old-school debate that aired across North Carolina with McCrory and Dalton. The presidential debate was interesting in that Jim Lehrer caught a lot of flack for letting Mitt Romney and Barack Obama go back and forth with each other.
He did catch a lot of
and I can't say that I wasn't entertained by that. That was a nice debate from my perspective, and Mr. Lehrer did a good job with it. The second debate was Candy Crowley. That's where you're getting into the allegations of refereeing. Turns out she jumped in on a fact that left some doors open for the right and the left to argue the semantics of an act of terror versus a terrorist act in Benghazi. I would not have jumped into that foray.
That was the question, right? I was going to ask that question, so go ahead and cover that.
Let candidates paint their own picture. It's not your job to pick the brush job. These guys are directing. They're directing their comments to the American public with a referee in the middle. And my opinion, which doesn't reflect on UNC-TV or anything else, is keep bedlam from breaking out in chaos, but let them debate. And if they want to say something that the other side can say isn't true, that's not for the referee to worry about. Keep the show on track, make sure the questions get answered, and let it go.
It just seemed that she was a bit, and I'm not going to use the word bias because I didn't see a bias there, but there was a bit more in that she wanted to intervene and say, well, this is factual or this is not factual, and that was not really her role to do that.
It's
some
more
of a timekeeper.
JW, people think that may be her role. There's a few out there, you're the host of this show, and you think she shouldn't have had that role. Yeah. I probably, no matter what I would have thought about it, I probably wouldn't have interjected in any of the role. I saw it happen once in the gubernatorial debate on that third one where Walter Dalton made an accusation of Pat McCrory, and one of the moderators said, well, you know he's not the governor. You don't know that he's going to do that. Well, yeah, you're right, but that's not what candidates do. They sling mud back and forth at each other regardless of how high-minded we want to be about it. It's about, I'm the best candidate for the job, and that guy's not.
Yeah, and I think you're right. At the same time, you know, moderators have that sense, and we know they have to control that sense of personal, because they obviously have a feeling one way or the other of what their thoughts are, but they have to control that and understand when they go into this thing, this is a matchup of words, of expectations, of wisdom, of knowledge, and they're playing off, and they can't really jump into one camp or the other.
Well, that's, if you were moderating the debate, you would stay out of it. That's obvious. It's obvious where you stand. Yeah, people expect reporters not to have any opinion at all. And that's a fallacy. We're human beings like anyone else. When we go home, we watch the same news reports at 6 and 7 if we're not at work. And but the real difference is, where does it pop out at? Where does my opinion reflect my work? Is it in my work? Do I treat you worse because of who you are versus who your opponent is? That's where a true professional stands. There's a lot of money being made in opinionated commentaries on cable news channels, but it's not journalism. It's just like, if you want to turn this into a partisan show and go back and forth with a candidate, sure enough, people enjoy it. That's why it's so lucrative. But separate those shows from the straight news reports that you see, and then make your judgments.
I heard it referred to as kind of a mental wrestling match, in which some of these programs, the extremist programs, will suck you in, and it's almost like you want to get in there mentally and wrestle with them and get your message across, and yeah, that's wrong, and it becomes a screaming match rather than a content match.
Well, when you're drawing 4 million people a night, between 8 and 9, and you're drawing 10 million a night in prime time on cable news, that is obviously what the viewers of that network want.
Very passionate viewers.
It's passionate viewers. I mean, if you don't care, you're not going to watch anything. You'll watch the Honey Boo Boo. But it's, you bring up an interesting thing. Extremist shows, I've never heard of them called that. I heard them called left wing and right wing. Yeah. So what makes you define them as extremist?
That's very true. That's very true. And what does extreme mean versus left or right?
What does it mean to you?
Yeah, and I think when we look at that, the word extreme, it gets back to, and I've heard this in the election many times, the word moderate versus right or left, and what does right or left mean? And I think as the general public, and as folks talk to me on the street, they'll say, I don't really want to get too far extreme. I think the word extreme means to them that they find themselves in a place that they can't objectively view anything else, that they're locked into one mindset, and that mindset will not allow them to view any other angle of thought. That their mental picture is literally within a closed category of thinking.
Who's defining political extreme?
Exactly.
There's a balanced federal budget an extremist view because it would require a $1.5 trillion immediate cut to reach balance. People say that's an extreme view. People say it's an extreme view to come home from Afghanistan. It depends on who's defining these words as whether or not you're extreme or not.
Yeah, and I think part of that is when we reach definition for that, we get back again to what you alluded to a while ago, is the financial resources. I'm blown away at the huge amount of dollars that are literally employed. I mean, they're developed, they're strategically marketed to sway what we do view as extreme or not extreme.
Sure, that's.
That's the whole
campaign. You're talking about campaign commercials.
Campaign money.
So $2 billion for the presidential campaign. I can't imagine $2 billion. I've never seen $2 billion. But
and I looked at it and I wonder these things, and I think there's probably, and you may give us some insight on this, those dollars as they are unfolded into the marketplace, that's a huge insertion of money. So we're looking at a major business infusion into the marketplace through commercials, through whatever program, through whatever advertising media, just whether it's WRL, WECT, whatever program it is.
There's big money in it. If you're in a battleground state like North Carolina, then you're going to have, these broadcasters are going to have lots of commercial ads bought. And so it is good for the local economy that these candidates raise that level of money. It's all legal. It's all constitutionally sound, according to the U.S. Supreme Court. Another debate there, another time. But it is good for the local economy if local broadcasters, newspapers, and the like can get some of that money in. It saves local jobs, and we as voters want it. We're engaged. If it was not making an impact, they wouldn't spend the money.
As we look at that amount of money, we think about the sense of what we're really looking for, and I'm thinking in terms of folks that I talk to, and I'm sure you hear a lot of folks that communicate with you as well. There's a sense of trying to seek what is truth, and as I alluded to a while ago, sometimes you get caught in that sense of the wrestling match mentality. Sometimes in this fodder of money being spent, marketing issues, ads on TV, whatever program you happen to dial your TV to, whether there's a slant or not a slant, is it becoming harder for us to find truth? And what is truth?
It is if you're too busy to do your own homework. I mean, that's simple.
Do you think there's a majority of the people that are in that, see themselves in that category? They're too busy?
A majority of the people see themselves as being well informed and doing their homework. It's all how you, and some people just want their personal beliefs vindicated, and that's that drives it. We all do that. We all have an opinion about something. That sunny skies are a great thing in the summertime, but maybe the guy who likes the clouds wants to find that group that tells him it's okay to like summer showers too. I mean, that's getting a little bit soft on that question, but it's all about engagement. It's all about debate. The world thrives, and stories, as long as books have been written, have needed conflict in them. That's what you have right now. A lot of pro, a lot of con. It is up to you to wade through all of that. One thing about all these campaign ads is that, from what I'm understanding, from what I hear out of Florida and other states, is to the point they've bought out all the inventory, which is all the available local commercials. Well, that just becomes static to the voter. Well, then it turns back to those three debates. Did that first debate make a difference? Yes, it did. Did people watch the second and third debate and the vice presidential debate? Yes. It was unfiltered, and all these ads may have made those debates more important when people were declaring the presidential debate a dead format.
Well, I think you're right, and there was a comment that was made by one of the national folks that maybe we should have more debates. Instead of having 3, have at least 6 debates and start them immediately, after the conventions and go into the debate mode that folks, the 60 million estimated per, had some sense of that. But I want to continue to talk about that after we come back from break. We're going to take another break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV. We'll be back in a moment, and we'll continue this discussion about politics, money, and what we think. We'll be back in a moment.
Sampson County's free community newspaper is on the stands. Read all about our community news, sports, lifestyles, weddings, education, obituaries, classifieds, and much more community information. Know what's going on in your community. Read the Sampson Weekly. Submit your ideas to the Sampson Weekly at thesampsonweekly.com. Read the entire newspaper online at thesampsonweekly.com. The Sampson Weekly wants to celebrate with the residents of Sampson County. Send all your news and announcements, events, and achievements to information at thesampsonweekly.com. See the Sampson Weekly for details. Help the Sampson Weekly create a buzz. Tell your friends and family. There's a new weekly newspaper in Sampson County. The Sampson Weekly. Local sports, local news, obituaries, wedding announcements, current events, and much, much more. Look for it every Wednesday. For a limited time, free yard sale listings will be in our classified section. Go to our website, click on the classified section, and fill out the form. As long as space is available, we will publish your yard sales information. Sampson County's free community newspaper. Get your copy.
I'm Gary Hall, manager of Sessoms Jewelry. We are proud to be sponsors of JW's We Should Know. At Sessoms Jewelry, we've always strived to give you the latest in technical advice and knowledge on our merchandise. Remember, we should know at Sessoms Jewelry, downtown Clinton.
Huff Orthopedics and Sports Medicine is pleased to be a part of the community. Each and every patient we have served over the past 13 years has been given the most current and professional care available anywhere. As a board-certified orthopedic surgeon and certified sports medicine surgeon, I am committed to improving the quality of life through the latest in medical science and surgical procedures when needed. Huff Orthopedics and Sports Medicine is located at 520 Beeman Street, directly across from Sampson Regional Medical Center in Clinton. We look forward to serving you. Call us today at 910-596-5633 for an appointment. I am Dr. Alex Huff, and we are pleased to sponsor We Should Know with JW Simmons.
Health Mart Pharmacy.
A real live person. It's just like Jenny told me.
Another friend of Jenny's. Great. I've met about 3 of Jenny's friends just this week.
You'll meet more of us. Jenny was telling all of us last week how great Health Mart is.
At Health Mart, all of our pharmacists take the time to get to know our patients, explain their medications, and answer any questions they may have. We really believe in better care and better service.
Can I stop in after work?
Absolutely.
Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
For all of your prescription and healthcare needs, shop Matthews Health Mart in the Jordan Shopping Plaza or call 592-3121.
I'm Gary Hall, manager of Sessoms Jewelry. We are proud to be sponsors of JW's We Should Know. At Sessoms Jewelry, we've always strived to give you the latest in technical advice and knowledge on our merchandise. Remember, we should know at Sessoms Jewelry, downtown Clinton.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You're listening to We Should Know on WCLN Radio, 1170 AM, Star Vision Channel 16, worldwide on the internet at oldies1170.com. The subject today is pretty much a lot of different things, talking about broadcasting. We're talking with Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV, anchor, reporter, host. Kelly's done a little bit of it all. A lot of folks know Kelly McCullen here in Sampson County. I like to tell folks, Kelly, that you are a seed that was planted here and grew up here. You know probably Eastern North Carolina as good as anybody, but you spent a lot of time in Raleigh. You spent a lot of time at the legislative building up there where all the laws and the things are made that control society out here. And we're talking about politics. A few days, folks are going to be at the polls making that vote
They're
count.
already there.
They're there. In fact, some statistics are saying as much as 50% of some folks in certain areas have already voted.
Oh, absolutely. I think I looked at a few precincts out of Durham, very heavily voted. Early voting is going to change the game. It's going to change how they handle elections. Instead of trying to get out the vote for one day, which would be November 6th, you're going to try to get the vote out for, 15, 16 days. So your election cycle should probably conclude about October 15th. It's going to change the rules, this early voting business, but it's going to bring turnout up. Right now, there's still more Democrats than Republicans have cast ballots in North Carolina. Does that mean anything? I don't know, but a higher percentage of Republicans have turned out for early voting. So both sides are feeling pretty optimistic, and some polls are showing Mitt Romney in the state up by 6. Other polls, public policy polling, is essentially got this campaign tied. The only difference would be in the gubernatorial race, where there is a big difference right now between Lieutenant Governor Dalton and former Charlotte Mayor Pat McCrory. But yeah, I see polls just like you do. I have no insight on how they are and how they're made.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to go to. I was going to talk about polls, and since you brought that up, to kind of go into that. I think it's part of that education piece that maybe we need to at least discuss a few moments here. We often draw a lot from polls. One of the things with polls that has been alluded to is oftentimes polls may temper a direction for folks. Well, if this person is winning and it looks as though he's got the lead, then does it, in your opinion, do you think it kind of causes folks to want to lean toward that person simply because the polls has them up? For example, with Pat McCrory, polls is up in North Carolina. Does it automatically, for those folks that may be undecided, think, well, this guy's the winner, so we're going to lead toward Pat McCrory?
I don't know. From what I read, and I'm no polling expert, is if you're undecided, you're undecided about is whether to give an incumbent, which there's no incumbent in this race, but in the governor's race, another 4-year term, whether president or whether a governor. And I think in this case, there is a vision of Walter Dalton, a vision of Pat McCrory. Pat McCrory has grabbed the mantle of change. His whole thing is broken state government, whether it's broken or not. And Lieutenant Governor Dalton's offering, well, we needed to keep trucking. I've got new ideas, innovative ideas. If you're undecided at this point, probably because you're wondering, do you want to stay kind of on this track or do you take a chance on reform? President Obama won in 2008. Hope and change, and it was change and hope. You don't know, do you elect the people, but do you vote for the Republican to keep continuing with Bush to McCain, or do you go for change, which would be from Republican to Democrat? So undecideds tend to be weighing whether or not they want to fire the people that are in office or the power structure in office, as opposed to just jumping on a bandwagon. I wouldn't think a voter would be very informed if they looked at a poll and said, I'll vote for this guy because he's more popular. This isn't student council.
Well, I think you're exactly right, but one of the things I keep hearing, and it's kind of a constant, it's not necessarily just this election, but more and more folks seem that I talk to, or that mention to me some of their concerns, is they're looking for something that is not right, it's not left, it's more this sense of moderate, and I'm not sure what all those definitions mean. I've got an idea of what they think they mean, but I'm not sure that that understanding by the general population. When I look at moderate, I don't know. I don't see that happening so much in the parties in the sense of Republican, Democrat, because the ideas, there is obviously two different directions here as to the way we approach things, two different opinions, and I truly believe that both of the leaders and both of the parties has the best interests of the country in mind, but two different opinions of how they approach it. Now, what does moderate mean? I don't know. When folks ask me, well, I think, I said, I don't know. What does moderate mean to you? And what does that mean as it relates to left or right? And does these terms really need to play in part of what we look at when we view the candidate? I tend to look more at the historical track record of that candidate. What have they done? What am I, again, your words, what am I hiring them to do? And what is their experience of that?
They work for the, I don't know if people are buying this whole moderate thing, because I'm looking at the primary results as well, and they're nominating, they're not the same people who want your moderation in Sampson County are looking at two candidates and choosing one or the other.
Absolutely.
And there's not a moderate party.
There is not.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know what you hear. I also know what I see.
Absolutely.
And people think they need to get absolute power to drive it through to this vision of better government, better society. Democrats think they have their way, and Republicans think they have their way. And there are different flavors of Republicans and Democrats. Sure. So it just all depends. A Democrat from Bladen, Cumberland, Sampson County may be different from one from Asheville or Wake County. So it's all very, very, very local.
Do you see more people, from your vantage point and with what you do, weighing in some aspect with this election process as opposed to 2008 and maybe other election processes? Do you see more people that maybe were not activated to get involved being activated now, or is it basically the same kind of?
I see a little, just in me walking in the streets, I see a little less. I don't see as many Romney signs as I saw McCain signs.
Right.
I mean, maybe there are more out there. I'm just looking at my personal observation. I've not had people come to my house, knock on the door, and ask me to vote for a presidential candidate like I did in 2008. So I don't know. The trends show Republican enthusiasm right now, and maybe not so much on the Democrats. Whereas in 2008, wildly historic Democratic enthusiasm.
Oh yeah.
I'm fascinated by this debate. I'm fascinated by election night. It's going to prove a whole lot of pollsters either right or wrong, and if they're widespread wrong in polling, no matter which way they want to go, and there's a majority are wrong on election night, what is it going to say to people who do look to polls to find out, well, what is the balance out there and what is the sentiment across the state and country?
Yeah, and how scientific have we got in those polls as it relates to our accuracy and predictability versus, well, it's just a shotgun approach. I mean, at the end, anything can happen. I think there's a lot to be proven here, especially with polls.
There is. Polling is a science, and I don't profess to be an expert in polling. They have to weigh these things. There are more Democrats registered in North Carolina than Republicans. They have to take that into account. They have to take into account who answers the phone when they call to do a poll. Is the poll done by a computer where you press 1 for yes and 2 for no, or is there a human being talking to the person asking the question? Then you have to determine, is this just a registered voter? Is this just a citizen who it doesn't matter if they're registered, or is this a likely voter? Polls look different based on whether you have registered voters versus those likely to actually show up. The ones that show up determine the election, not the ones that are registered.
And you mentioned something good a while ago when we talked about that sense of finding truth. There is a sense of research going on. There's also, I think, a dependency to whatever portion we want to play with it, with programs like you do, with information that your program puts out with UNC-TV. There's a certain dependency on that being accurate and truth.
Well, now, Legislative Week in Review, when it cranks up July 11th, 2013, it's a Friday night show. It's more of a highlight show to tell you what happened with some political analysis is what it's called. So yeah, it's going to be a highlight show if this is what your lawmakers worked on. I'm not going to dive too deep into getting opinion-based. There's no time for it when you have hundreds of bills running through. So in some regards, the straight information is there, and you take that, ingest that, read your papers, read what your local politicians are doing, and form your own opinions on that. But about finding the quote-unquote truth, the truth moves, and Republicans are going to see a whole different truth sometimes than what a Democrat or even a Libertarian will see in terms of how did this policy play out to this state.
Yeah, and I think the truth part is important, and the other part that you just mentioned is an area I wanted to talk about as well, is that sense of how truth might change based on the dynamics of the environment, what is happening. I mean, a legislator or somebody in politics may make a decision, and there's some sense that a person changing their mind is not acceptable. But in reality, it should be acceptable, because when the dynamic of the environment changes, you may need to change your mind. And I've heard this favorite phrase is, he's a flip-flopper, or you know, and that's a negative thing according to a lot of folks as they try to portray it. But is that really negative? I don't really think so. I think the ability to be able to make a decision, and if that decision is not correct 2 years later or a year later, based on environmental change, you should be able to say, wait, you know, new data, new information, new decision.
Well, if you're running for office, I know you'll be up for changing your mind, JW.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it's, yeah, you're right about that. It's everything on the ground. The wars, President Obama's going to end the wars sooner than anyone else. Well, we're still in the conflict in Afghanistan, and maybe he got in there and got told some truths that are getting Guantanamo Bay. What's going to happen if Governor Romney wins and his first budget out of the chute is $1 trillion deficit, when conservatives and Republicans think that's going to run us off this cliff and we're going to end up like Greece? Then you worry about flip-flopping, and people will start discussing that. But you know, maybe more people are like you and say, you know, maybe their conditions on the ground are different. I don't know. It depends on how strict of a standard you want to hold your candidates.
When you look at what you're seeing, and again from the window and the door that you look out of, and your vantage point, there's a lot being drawn in here the last few days about international issues, about our ambassador being murdered, and that whole sense. How much do you see that having a significant impact?
I don't. On an issue that broad, I'm not a national correspondent. Has it affected the impression in America? Absolutely. I think it has to some degree. We'll have to see how it plays out as this story begins unfolding. It may be something that can't be told until after the election, and then what happens? I don't know. I'm reading it just like you were on that. Talking about the Libyan situation. I hate that any Americans died, but there's a difference when you're using words in the media. On this show, you just said murdered. Some people might say they were killed in combat, or killed, or something just went awry. It might have been an accident. I'm not even weighing in on that. I know where you're coming from on that. Millions of people are feeling the same way. Do you think it's going to affect? Think it's going to affect Sampson County voters, Libya, or is it going to be the economy?
Let's pick up on that when we come back from break. It's a good point, and I want to follow up on that. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV. A very interesting, hopefully insightful discussion for you about what's happening and expectations in the future. We'll be back in a moment.
Health Mart Pharmacy.
A real live person. It's just like Jenny told me.
Another friend of Jenny's. Great. I've met about 3 of Jenny's friends just this week.
You'll meet more of us. Jenny was telling all of us last week how great Health Mart is.
At Health Mart, all of our pharmacists take the time to get to know our patients, explain their medications, and answer any questions they may have. We really believe in better care and better service.
Can I stop in after work?
Absolutely.
Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
For all of your prescription and health care needs, shop Matthews Health Mart in the Jordan Shopping Plaza or call 592-3121.
Hello everyone, this is Jim Darden. After 25 years of teaching horticulture at Sampson Community College, I've retired to devote my full attention to Darden's Nursery and Landscaping, where we have grown local azaleas, trees, and other landscape plants for over 30 years. And our landscaping division has designed and installed hundreds of residential and commercial landscapes, irrigation, sodding, and night light systems as well. Please give me a call at 590-9689 or at home at 592-1424, and let's get started on your landscape. Our initial consultation is free. Congratulations to JW Simmons on an outstanding program, We Should Know.
I'm Gary Hall, manager of Sessoms Jewelry. We are proud to be sponsors of JW's We Should Know. At Sessoms Jewelry, we've always strived to give you the latest in technical advice and knowledge on our merchandise. Remember, we should know at Sessoms Jewelry, downtown Clinton.
Interstar Communications, our local area internet provider, invites you to discover the wonders of the web with their unlimited internet services for only $19.95 a month. That's right, for only $19.95 a month, you'll have the whole world at your fingertips anytime or all the time with Interstar Communications. Plus, with Interstar's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week technical support at no extra charge, you'll have more than the local internet provider on your side. You'll have the whole internet team. So stop by today and see the friendly folks at Interstar Communications, 102 Sampson Street here in Clinton, or you can call them at 564-4638 and get started today on your adventure in the World Wide Web.
Huff Orthopedics and Sports Medicine is pleased to be a part of the community. Each and every patient we have served over the past 13 years has been given the most current and professional care available anywhere. As a board-certified orthopedic surgeon and certified sports medicine surgeon, I am committed to improving the quality of life through the latest in medical science and surgical procedures when needed. Huff Orthopedics and Sports Medicine is located at 520 Beeman Street, directly across from Sampson Regional Medical Center in Clinton. We look forward to serving you. Call us today at 910-596-5633 for an appointment. I am Dr. Alex Huff, and we are pleased to sponsor We Should Know with JW Simmons.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back again. This is we're kind of our last segment here on We Should Know. We thank you for listening today. We're talking with Kelly McCullen, UNC-TV. Kelly comes down periodically. This is one of those times that we were able to get him down here. It's been a fairly busy schedule, I'm sure, on his part. Kelly, we're talking about politics. We're talking about various issues, and as we went to break, we were talking about the international impact of what's going on nationally in the election now, and you made a very good point. You know, as people, especially in your position, because your audience is huge compared to my audience, but you do have to kind of garner what words mean and what phrases mean. And I agree, you know, sometimes if you use the word murder or death or killed or what have you, extremist, what does that
Socialist.
really mean? You got to identify it, because identity is very important. What does that mean? So when you think about that,
means so much. Mm-hmm. And I want to preface this, my comments about the election, what I feel about the candidates. I can't get on here as in the role I'm in right now and go off on whether I support local, state, or federal. It's not my job. My job is to bring you information. But I will tell you, words matter in how you report a story. In fact, Obamacare came out, 2 years ago. I was writing scripts, and I was hearing Obamacare. I said, well, maybe it's called Obamacare. So I started using Obamacare, and a production manager, producer, came to me and said, you know, I don't know if that's an endearing term. You might be falling into using a word that could be seen as condescending by one side. Yeah. And we discussed that one word, and we made it Health Care Reform Law or Affordable Care Act. And in some ways, people would look at that and say, well, you're not using the word Obamacare, shows you're a liberal bias.
Yeah.
Or, but by the fact you're not calling it Obamacare shows you don't support the president. So it puts you in that rhetorical pickle. But you're right about that. For that was Obamacare, the last thing that pops up. We started using Health Care Reform Law, which is what it is. It's not Obamacare. It's a Health Care Reform Law, Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care
Act. And
exactly.
but I digress. Yeah, choose your words wisely when you're reporting.
Well, I think it's interesting to do that. And at the same time, you know, we talked about earlier, just a while ago, we were talking about that even though those things are important, both of us still have certain opinions. And fortunately or unfortunately, as guarded as we may be, sometimes those things kind of ease out a little bit.
Do they?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things in doing that is that, can we guard it enough? I guess my question would be, can we guard it enough that we don't allow it? And is it good to not let any sense of feeling of persuasion, whether it's conservative, liberal, or whatever those words mean?
In your position, I think people, as hosting of this show, they would like to see a bit of opinion, but they don't want to see a radical thought or just so partisan that people are uncomfortable talking with you. From my position as a straight reporter, if they pass a bill worth $2 billion and it has a tax increase or a tax cut in it, I need to deliver that, then bring on my guests to say, is this tax cut good or bad? Let them describe it. Once again, I need to get out of the way in my role. If I ever have a talk show like you would have, I'd probably weigh it in a little bit, because it's okay for you to say, you know what's going on here? I think this.
Yeah.
And I think it's acceptable for you in your role to ask those kinds of questions.
I'm glad you pointed that out, especially for our listeners and for the folks that tune in, and we have a huge number of people that listen to this program that may be on a tractor in a field. You know, when you were growing up and we'd see a tractor. Today's tractors have, cabs on them with heat, air conditioning, nice radio systems, and all this kind of thing. So I want to make sure folks understand exactly what you're saying, and I totally concur that we try as best I can here, and I know you have to, but to try to keep it factual and upfront. And if it is an opinion, the guest has that opportunity to lay that out.
If your guests have no opinion, you don't have much of a
That's
show.
exactly
It's dry as a bone, and it's a challenge I have with some of the long format interviews I do with some of the topics. The people are nice people, but if there's no opinion in there, or we're trying to everybody's walking a tightrope, I don't think the viewer is better informed. It's not my role to tell you how I think. It's my role to bring that person in to let you judge for yourself. Regarding editorial versus fact, consider how newspapers, and I'll do the Independent, Sampson Independent, they have an editorial page. Now, on the front page, you're not going to see their editorial. So if they're doing their job really well, and they do, the news stories are on the front page, and if you want to read the opinion of the local newspaper, which has some weight, then you read that page, but don't blend the two. Everybody knows their role.
Mentioning the newspaper, very important. Let's talk about that just for a minute. In the political structure, again, last few days, this program is going to play out this week 4 times. What is the significant role, and what media piece do you see as the strength media piece for the current political race? What is the main media that these candidates are looking at to carry their message forward and to get that last 50% of the vote out, or encourage those folks? What is it? TV? Is it radio? Is it printed?
It's obviously all of the above. This idea that media is diminishing is hogwash. That papers aren't important. They are important. The Orlando Sentinel, the the Des Moines Register up in Iowa.
They're not going away.
They're handing out endorsements that are making headlines right now this week. At the federal level, of course, you want to be on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, whatever other national outlets you can get onto, because it's big blanket shotgun approach. Even the night, but that's more entertainment than that's a serious dialogue about politics.
But they see it as a face.
Now, on the state level, you would go to local news. That's why you see the McCrory and Dalton ads during the newscast at 6 and 11 and 10. Because that's where local viewers are watching and engaged viewers are watching. At the county commission levels, mayors, I think that's where guys like you, the Sampson Independent, the weekly community paper here, could play a very, very pivotal role, because those people are right in your backyard, and they're not covered as well as the gubernatorial race or the presidential race, even by the local papers. And you keep in mind, there are some people here paying more in property taxes to Sampson County and the city of Clinton than they're paying to Uncle Sam in Washington, D.C.
Correct.
And yet, it's rude, or it's somehow off-putting to challenge that local candidate on why they believe they need that extra 3 cents on every 100. Doesn't sound like a lot. And I don't know if there's any kind of referendum out there on that, but if you want to break it down, guys like you, county level, and you can be the go-to destination, because we're not able to get down here.
Let me interject too, as we're talking about this, and I hope our listeners are picking up on this. It's a wonderful conversation. This is the kind of thing I love to get into, because I want to try to stimulate more response from my listening base, which is, depending on what numbers you look at. I mean, you've been on local radio here. Heck, you used to be a reporter or whatever you want to call it for work with WCLN, so you know what we're dealing with here. It's not big time by any means, but you know, oftentimes we'll get comments from other counties from that surround Sampson, and I want to encourage folks to continue to send in those emails to give us input. To me, from where I sit in trying to do this program, it is crucial that I hear from the constituency that may be listening. And a lot of folks, oftentimes I'll hear from folks out there in those tractor cabs that are doing whatever in the fields, plowing, disking or whatever, or maybe harvesting this time of the year, and they'll say, I heard your program with Kelly McCullen, for example, and yeah, I agree with so-and-so or I don't. And it's important, it keeps the juice going for me. I don't know whether that works for you or not.
You've got a webmaster right here running the camera
absolutely,
for the show that can help you email, social media, Facebook, regardless you don't really like it, but it's the way you get in and involve that audience. I agree with you. Interactivity means a lot, and it makes your show a better show, and it makes local broadcasting. But to say it's small potatoes in this market, I don't believe that at all. If you're getting a 25% share of your market in Sampson County with this radio show, 1 of every 4 people who have the radio on in this county are listening to you and whoever you have on the radio or on the TV show at this for this purpose as well. That's 1 in 4. Tell me that's not important to somebody running for mayor of any town in Sampson County and county commissioner and state senate and state house. It's a huge audience. Anything less than what you guys are doing, and people aren't going to know who's representing them at the ground level. Now,
in your program, you mentioned media and you mentioned Facebook. You're also Facebook, Twitter, you've got it all going on.
I'm easy to find.
Yeah, you've got it all going on. I mean, I've looked at your stuff. How critical is that in the sense of where you see a large portion of the market base going? I mean, is that something that, you know, there's a certain number of people, I guess, and I'll talk about age again, a certain age factor, they're just not into that, but a huge number of people look at that as value added.
It is value added. The people that don't have a computer and email in this day and age, I'm very sorry, but you're lost. The Postal Service is going broke because of email. And so you have to get on it. No, it's absolutely critical. In fact, I'll have relatives who want to see and listen to this show, and I don't know that they can get it because they can't pick up WCLN and they can't stream it. Not to call you out.
I understand.
I'll call the guys out in the control room because I know people care about Sampson County. I haven't lived here since '93 full time. I care very much about what goes on down here politically, socially, and civically. And how do I get it without having a newspaper mailed to me that's 2 or 3 days old because I can't get a day off? You have a challenge, and I hope you'll meet it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because maybe it'll help, I guess a way of putting it for everybody can understand, maybe it'll help turn up the volume a little bit for what we're trying to accomplish here. And you've always been in fact, a little over 2 years ago when we started this program, you've been a key supporter, and I've drawn a lot.
Everything you're wanting to do is free to do, and that's why it's just a matter of putting your name out there, getting the show out there, getting your email out there that you want people to write you. People want to be engaged, and you're a friendly guy, and you're easy to approach. I've seen you in public. That's what matters. People think you're beyond approach. They won't come and engage in your show. This is the local show right now in Sampson County that people can listen to and can watch if they're on Star Vision. Yeah. Do you have places you can go with this? Absolutely. This could be a pivotal show. Imagine putting 2 closely contested county commissioner candidates on this forum or hosting a debate in this Star Vision studio. You think people in Clinton wouldn't watch? You're bananas if you think they wouldn't watch.
Well, and we've been very fortunate to have some very good sponsors that have come on, and that tells me that apparently we're doing something right. So I think that part of it, and one of our newest sponsors, of course, Jim Darden with Darden Nursery, it gives me a good shot in with that, is part of that continuing additional growth that we're seeing. But there's so much we can do. I want to thank you. We're kind of down to our last few seconds here. I want to thank you and have enough time here to express our appreciation for you taking your time coming to Clinton. I think we're fortunate to know that part of your roots is in Sampson County and that you have a lot of friends here, so it's not that hard to persuade you to come sit down and talk to me and maybe have lunch with me or what have you. So we may be calling on you again to come down. We are close to that political end game, if you want to look at it from that direction.
Well, January 11th would be the second Friday, has to be, I believe. No, first, I don't know. Anyway, January 11th, 7:30 p.m., I believe, primetime Legislative Week in Review. You owe me a plug for this hour of conversation.
We'll do it.
So I want you to watch UNC-TV.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching today. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week on the radio. We'll be talking about Kazakhstan.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question or comment regarding this or any episode, please send your email questions and or comments to jwsimmonsedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday afternoon beginning at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.